CEO of Ironbound Boxing. Mike will be discussing how to position your products and services in a market with strong demand, how to develop your perfect customer thesis, how to develop your customer activation cycle to convert prospects into paying clients, and also defining your marketing cadence. So as a reminder, also one-on-one appointments can be scheduled following the presentation if you have any questions or specific strategies to your needs. You can email Rob or I from Iona, and we'll be able to schedule a session for you. So without further ado, Mike, the floor is yours.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm fired up. Always a pleasure to be here supporting the community. Appreciate the Community Navigator pilot program for having me. They're doing some great work to empower the veteran entrepreneurial community, and it's my honor to support you all. For those who don't know me, my name is Iron Mike Stedman. You are correct. It is Iron Mike. I jokingly tell people if you lived in Newark, New Jersey, in the middle of a global pandemic, you would be Iron as well. Once upon a time, I was a Marine Corps infantry officer, deployments to Afghanistan, Japan, and the Philippines with 1st Line 8th Marines out of Camp Lejeune. Before that, I was a 3-time national boxing champ, 2-time most valuable boxer, and captain of my boxing team at the Naval Academy. And I fell in love with the sport of boxing. So I got my start in entrepreneurship, launching my first venture, Ironbound Boxing, a nonprofit based in Newark, New Jersey. We provide free amateur boxing training, entrepreneur education, and employment opportunities to Newark youth and young adults. And I was a lot like you all, right? I was just a person trying to solve a problem to serve his community. And that threw me in this veteran entrepreneurial ecosystem that I did not know existed at the time, taking me all the way from Stanford Ignite, the Bunker Labs in New York City, and the veterans and residents, and really gave me a soft landing when I quit my full-time job in 2018 to focus on Ironbound full-time, launching a few ventures before I finally settled on Ironbound Media. So it's a journey, and it ain't a straight line. It's not even a squiggly line. It's like all over the place, right? But this is about you all today. This is my I'm important slide. Don't care about it. Today, we're going to be talking about branding. And I want to talk about how specifically to help you all position your products and services in a market with strong demand. And one of the things that I realized, right, when I was coming up with my frameworks that I'm going to talk about today is in the veteran entrepreneurial community, we're really good at helping you all come up with business ideas, right? So we have the whole come up with your pitch deck, problem, solution, yada, yada, yada. But the gap that we have is actually going to market. How do you get those first 10 customers? How do you get those first 100 and beyond? And that's what I want to help you accomplish today. And the first thing that we have to ask ourselves when we're coming up with a new business idea or we're in the fight and things aren't selling is where are we trying to play? Like, where do we want to play? And specifically, what am I talking about? I'm talking about your market. And why are we talking about your market? Because that's how customers are thinking about you, right? They are positioning you in their mind based off of what they already know, okay? And our job as on the branding side of the house is to position ourselves, all right? So do an exercise with me real quick. All right, let's say you go to the mall, not go to the mall, you go to the grocery store, and you say, you know what? I want to get some ketchup, right? So what do you first do? You look up at the aisles and you look for the condiment section, right? Then you identify condiments, you go there and you turn down the aisle, and then what are you looking for? What brand immediately pops to your minds? Probably Heinz, right? Heinz is like the category king of ketchup, right? If you want ketchup, you're probably going to go with Heinz. Now, maybe you're gluten-free or sugar-free or something. Then there's some other brand that you're looking at. We got Abe Kmark, who launched True Made Foods, which is a ketchup, sugar-free ketchup brand. But for the most part, right, people are going to go with Heinz, right? See, the thing is, when you're showing up to the market, right, you've got to be very intentional about how you're showing up. Because if you're going to launch a ketchup brand and you're trying to go head to head with Heinz, you're probably going to lose. Probably not a smart decision, right? So what we have to do is we got to say, okay, if that's the case, how do we think about showing up? How do we think about positioning ourselves? And you've got 3 options, okay? Number 1, you can go head to head. This means you're trying to knock out an established player. This is like trying to outcoach Coca-Cola. There's a veteran brand called Wove that is custom jewelry. So they're doing engagement jewelry online, you know, engagement rings and stuff, etc. And they try to position themselves out the gate initially as a luxury jeweler. The problem with that is you already got Tiffany's, right? How can you beat that brand credibility built by Tiffany's over freaking 50 years, movies and everything. When people think luxury jeweler, they think of like Tiffany's, right? So it's probably not smart to go head to head. The other option that you have is to niche down in an existing market with strong demand. So you already know the demand is there. And let's use Coca-Cola as example, right? People love soda. They love sugary soda. Okay. Well, what is niche down? You think of like Doritos, right? This is almost like a Mexican soda brand, right? They're not trying to take away Coca-Cola's market share, but what they are doing is they're saying like, hey, if you like tacos and et cetera, right? Probably going to drink it with a Choritos, right? That's where they're kind of niching down, right? That's their brand credibility. And then the third option that we have is you create a new category altogether, right? I don't know if y'all are familiar with Olipop, right? Tastes good, a lot of less sugar than like Coca-Cola and even Doritos. But you'll notice on that can, Olipop doesn't position themselves as soda. They position themselves as sparkling tonic. See what they did there? Sparkling tonic is an entirely new, different category that they're introducing into the market space, okay? There's another soda brand that's doing really well. It's called Poppy, right? And if you look at Poppy's category, probiotic soda. What the heck is probiotic soda? It's a new category that they introduce, okay? When people are creating ventures at the startup level, right? A lot of times what they're doing is they're introducing new market categories where they're creating jobs that previously didn't exist, right? So if you think about 15 years ago, there was no social media manager, right? There was no digital marketing specialist, right? New brands have rolled out like Facebook, right? Now, Facebook didn't create the category of social media. Let's say MySpace did, and there were some other competitors ahead of them. But make no mistake, Facebook is synonymous with social media. That's why they buy up all these little apps, right? From WhatsApp to Instagram to all this different stuff, okay? But the thing is, they're creating new jobs, right, in this space, okay? Now, for small business owners, which I'm assuming a lot of you on this call are, it's going to be pretty hard to create a new category. You really got to lean into it, and there are ways to do it. There's a book behind me called Play Bigger, which we can get into later during the Q&A. But for the most part, especially early on, either way, I'm going to encourage most of this audience to really focus on niching down, right? Because I want you to become synonymous with a category that you own. And so what does niche down means? It means you're going to damn the demand. So the demand is already over here for this. Let's say digital marketing, and I'm going to do digital marketing for law firms in the New Jersey area. Does that make sense? Right? That's an example of niching down. All right. Let's take it a little bit easier. All right. So you come up with this idea for your business. All right. You decide how you're showing up to the market. You're going to go head to head. You're going to niche down. You're going to create a new category. And we say, okay, we're going to niche down. Right. Well, the first thing that you need to do, don't overcomplicate it. I want you to emphasize the functional benefit of your business, i.e., what is it that you do? Too often people come up with this idea and we're like, this is so new and innovative and nothing like this has existed before. Da, 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 da. And then people go to your websites or you tell your friends what it is you do and they like have no idea. You know, like it's so hard for even someone like me. Like I'll ask y'all, I'm like, oh, tell me about what you do. And then you make it super complicated that I can't even make referrals on your behalf. As opposed to, boom, functional benefit. Right. I was actually looking, I'm a coffee drinker, right? I drink my little coffee in the morning and I spent this morning looking up those, chalkboards, right? You ever see the chalkboards where it says coffee served here, right? Gets me every time, right? I'm walking around, I'm looking for coffee, boom. Like I don't even really care about the coffee shop. It's just like, I want coffee. It's sold there, boom. But I did find this sign of ice cold beer. Do you have to guess what it is that they're selling? No, pretty straightforward, right? And the thing is now, when you guys are going to market, right, you're posting on social media, right? You're trying to sell your business at these pop-ups and everything. It's a giant mall, right? Everyone is online all the time now. Everyone's talking about their business. Everyone's running ads. Clarity is going to be your secret weapon, especially early on. So you need to clearly articulate what it is you do. And I love this because it's just simple. Get ice cold beer, right? Now, once they're in the door, we can show them all our different options, but at the forefront of what we do, we sell ice cold beer, right? Simple, in the story. So functional benefit. I want you to write it, take a note down and write, what is my functional benefit? And that is literally, what is it you do? Once you have your functional benefit, the next thing you need to think about is what is the emotional benefit, right? So it's what you do, but what does that allow us to do, right? Anybody ever seen Shawshank Redemption? Yeah, I don't know. Some of y'all maybe raise your hands. Yeah. You ever see that scene where the guy convinces the guards to let them do the roof? He was like, we'll finish the roof in this amount of time. And if we do it, right, you'll buy us all a bucket of ice cold beer, right? So they do it, they buy them the beer, and then the guys just kind of get to sit on the roof and kick back and drink beer, relax, feel like men again, right? Because they've been so locked up, they've had so much taken away from them. It's been very hard for them to feel like they have agency. And even though it was only for like 45 minutes, they got to kick back, watch the sunset, drink ice cold beer. Okay. So let's use that example of that beer sign, right? And let's say we open a bar, right? Because vets love to open bars. Let's be honest, right? People come in, we sell them on ice cold beer, but the emotional benefit is that they get to relax after a hard day's work. They get to kick back. So when you're marketing, right, on one end of the spectrum, you need to emphasize what it is you do. On the other end, you need to make the customer the hero of the story and show them the benefits of, you know, coming to that bar or coming using your products or service. And this is an example, right? Kicking back, relaxing. So functional benefit, emotional benefit. All right. I took this photo. This is off my iPhone. Okay. You see over here in the right-hand corner, right? I'm drinking Red Stripe. What is Red Stripe synonymous with? Does anybody know? Jamaican beer. If you want Jamaican beer, the first thing that's going to pop up in your mind is Red Stripe. I was on vacation for like a week in Jamaica, and I didn't want to drink anything else other than Red Stripe just because it just felt wrong, right? Like, but that's what it is. It's synonymous. If you ask anyone in Jamaica, what is the Jamaican beer? They're going to say Red Stripe, right? If you say Irish beer, right? What is something that pops up a lot? Let's say Guinness, okay? Another thing I got on my plate, what am I eating? Jerk chicken, right? What is jerk chicken synonymous with? Jamaica as well, for most people, right? So when you think of jerk chicken, when you think of Red Stripe, right, you think of Jamaica. Why is that important? Because that's branding, right? That brand credibility is already established, okay? Now, I don't know when it happened in the history of the world where Jamaica became synonymous with Red Stripe and jerk chicken, right? But it is what it is, okay? So if I was trying to launch a Jamaican beer today, right, it wouldn't make no sense for me to go head to head with Red Stripe because that category is already there. It's dominated. Now, maybe there's some other opportunities, but again, they're synonymous with it. How do we make you synonymous with something? This is another important question you need to ask yourself. What do you want to be known for? Write it down, right? And literally ask yourself, like, what do you want to be known for? And what do people know you for? And as brands, we got to connect the dots, okay? And it all starts, let me go back. There we go. It all starts by understanding our perfect customer, right? This is who you're serving, right? If you don't like Jamaican beer, right? Maybe you don't like drinking alcohol at all. You don't like beer at all. Probably not your perfect customer in the first place. But in order to know who you're for, you also need to know who you're not for, okay? Now, your perfect customer is someone that is willing to pay you a premium for your products or services, tell everyone how amazing you are, make a constant stream of warm referrals on your behalf, and the most important thing we don't talk about, they actually make you enjoy being an entrepreneur because there's a lot of customers that make you cringe, right? Every time that email, you see their name in your email inbox, you get anxiety. Or when they call you, you get anxiety. We don't want those customers, right? We want perfect customers, the customers that fill us up, okay? And so you got to be intentional about that. But at the same time, you have to understand and be okay that who you don't serve, right? So I run Ironbound Boxing here in Newark, New Jersey. For years, I struggled trying to raise funds from these corporate social responsibility groups. I had my little table set up, did the little volunteer day, nothing, nada, zero donations. You know why? Because a lot of them didn't see how what we were doing with boxing was serving inner city youth. They're like, oh, you live in Newark, New Jersey. You know, it's already a rough city. How is boxing changing the economic and social outcomes of these kids, right? So I struggled because I was talking to the wrong audience. Then all of a sudden I start getting in front of veterans. They're like, we love it. Grit, resilience, hardcore. We love boxing. Donations start to roll in. And so now I spend the majority of my time when I fundraising to veteran audiences because that's my perfect customer. And when people say, well, what if we don't want to support boxing? Well, we're not for you because amateur boxing is a big part of what we do. So you need to understand who your perfect customer is And you need to make sure that they are the economic buyer, especially early on. It's always going to be a human. You can say, oh, it's this brand over here. No, what is their job at this company, right? What is their title? Because they're going to be the ones that are going to cut the checks. All right. The next thing you need to think about is like, what is your tactical advantage? So like, what do you bring to the table? There's a term we say, product founder fit, right? Like, are you the one to solve this problem? So in my case, right, let's go back to boxing. I opened this talk by saying 3-time national boxing champ, 2-time most valuable boxer, captain of the Navy boxing team, right? That's strategic. The reason I say that is because it establishes instant credibility and authority, particularly when I do anything with boxing. There ain't a lot of African-American Naval Academy boxing champs in Newark, New Jersey running free amateur boxing programs. So when I come across people and I speak, they get it instantly, okay? How do we do the same for you? How do you position yourself so that you're the one to solve that problem? That tactical advantage is the moat around your business. It can be the relationships you already have in the space. It can be the years of industry expertise that you've built up. These are all things that you need to bear down on your brand. You want to avoid speculation, right? You've seen this crypto bubble blow up. All these people trying to invest in crypto. Then you actually have a conversation with them. It's like, have you ever done any crypto, anything, right? Like, you don't even know how to use a computer. Why are you talking to me about investing in crypto? You've already set yourself up for failure. We don't want that, right? We want to position you, want to build a moat around you, and you have to emphasize the tactical advantage in your brand, okay? And when you have that, this is the simplest go-to-market framework you're ever going to get, and it works, right? And it's called dog whistle branding. And I want you to think about your brand like a dog whistle. Every time you blow on it, whether you're posting on social media, you're sending a newsletter, you're going to give a talk, you're not talking to everyone, right? You're talking to your perfect customer. So anytime they see your content, their ears perk up and they start coming to come run like a dog whistle, blowing that whistle. So you need 3 things to build a dog whistle brand, okay? Number 1, you need a perfect customer. And remember, someone that's willing to pay you a premium for your product services, tell everyone how amazing you are, make a constant stream of warm referrals on your behalf, and they fire you up and remind you why you chose to be an entrepreneur in the first place. The second thing you need is a whistle to communicate with them. A lot of times y'all are like, oh, we need to be on social media. We need to be on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, WhatsApp, da-da-da. But then you ask a simple question is like, who's your perfect customer? Are they even on these platforms? How do you know? You talk to business owners and you're like, where are the majority of your sales coming from? And they're like, oh, LinkedIn. And it's like, okay, well, if all your sales are coming through LinkedIn, why are you playing around on TikTok? Well, we see everybody on TikTok. We need to be there. It's a waste of time, particularly if you're a bootstrapped entrepreneur or you're having cash issues, right? And you're probably gonna have cash issues at any point because it's just the nature of the beast of entrepreneurship. But what you want to think about is like, what is their whistle? Is it a trade association magazine? Is it a chamber of commerce? Is it, going to events, right? Military veteran startup conference or military influencer conference or whatever. Like, what gets your perfect customer's attention, right? And then the third thing you need is a brand that says, take my money, right? So I want you to imagine you've got your brand flag, right? And you climb up to a mountain and you plant that brand flag into the ground and you shout from the rooftop, this is who we are. This is what we stand for. This is what differentiates us from the competition. And this is something that you all need to really understand is your competitors. And not in a sense that they're a distraction, more so in a sense of you need to understand your competitors because it's going to allow you to differentiate your brand. What customers are looking for is perspective on the market. So this is how we see X, Y, and Z, right? So branding, let's say podcasting, right? I believe that the future of publishing is audio, okay? Just like people write books, people are going to be making a hell of a lot of podcasts. And Peter Drucker, if he was alive today, he wrote 30 different books on leadership. He's the godfather of management consulting. I would argue that if he was alive today, he would have 30 different podcasts. You see, that's my point of view, right? That's that POV. And then you say, okay, now in the landscape, there's different ways you can go, right? If you want to do a narrative podcast or you're doing a high production podcast, you can go to Gimlet Media, okay? If you want to do a B2B podcast where you're driving revenue and doing some business development, right? You could probably look at Sweet Fish Media, okay? But if you're really trying to nail your branding and you want to use a POV you want to use a podcast to really help build that brand out and, drive that niche that you're known for, or even create a new category, dog whistle branding is for you. You see what I did there? I gave point of view and perspective. Okay. I talked about my different competitors and then I positioned myself. All right. This is what you have to do for your customers. And as the CEOs, the founders, you have to be able to sell. This is end of story, right? You can't outsource that yet, right? Maybe once you get 100 customers or something, then you can start handing off the sales, because then you really understand why people are buying and how you're able to get over those barriers. But in the end, somebody's on, please mute yourself. But in the interim, you need to understand this. All right. So perfect customer, whistle, premium branding. And we can go over this at the end, answer some questions there. All right. Once you have that, I'm going to keep it very simple for you. I want you to create a list of 10 names, right, that you want to go after. And I want you to close. I don't care if you're doing a direct to consumer product. This is something that you're selling just online through the internet. Everyone thinks that they can just automate sales and it's so easy. This is not the case. I'm telling y'all, I'm a professional business coach. I talk to a lot of business owners behind the scenes. It is a struggle. It is always a constant battle. It's a fight to acquire customers. And when you're having cash issues, when sales aren't moving as quick as you can, I always go back and say, okay, who are the 10 people I need? And that's your fire plan. Sometimes the best thing you can have is this whiteboard behind you, right? Boom, boom, boom. Put 10 names on the board and you go after it and you get it. Now, that fire plan, though, can also be fishing where the fish are, right? So let's say you're selling a lot of products, right? That's, you're not like me. You're not like a service-based business, but you have to sell, I don't know, brushes or something, right? You probably need to sell a lot of them, right? Well, in this case, maybe it's conferences. Maybe it's a major distributor, right? You want to think through this. It's like, how can I get the best bang for the buck and be strategic? You do 10, then you do 100, right? And as you're doing that, you're documenting systems and processes, right? Figuring out what works best and then passing it off. That's when you can start bringing other people in to help you with the sale process. Now, does anybody know what this is? Trojan horse, right? This is my secret weapon, all right? Early on, when you're starting out, right? As a brand, you may or may not have a lot of trust. Okay. So boxing wise, I got a lot of trust there, but still people, they didn't know a lot about Ironbound, et cetera, et cetera. At one point, I decided to stand up a for-profit arm of Ironbound Boxing. So I was teaching boxing to companies in the New York City metro area, right? And that's actually what I quit my job for in 2018. Terrible idea, because I didn't violate the business model before I quit, all right? But one of the things I did find was a channel partner. So I had never, I drew up this plan to teach boxing to companies, but I had never actually taught boxing at a corporate entity before. So thankfully, I was able to find a channel partner through a company called Exuberancy, which is the largest wellness provider here in New York City. And you know what their clients were? Spotify, Etsy, Facebook, Google. And you know what I did? I taught boxing classes under Exuberancy, right? Still got to rep my Ironbound boxing gear, had my little promo and all that other stuff. The only thing was Exuberancy took a large chunk of the margin, but that was okay because it was only temporary. See, I had to get some reps in, right? And what that channel partner allowed me to do, when I tell people I taught boxing at Spotify, Etsy, Pinterest, all these different places, I literally did. I wasn't lying. Now, they didn't know that Exuberancy was the Trojan horse that got me in the door, but sometimes you got to work with a Trojan horse just to get the experience and then also get the brand credibility and recognition. So now I could have that Spotify on my website. I could have those things because I had the experience of it. And that's super important. I want to go back to one thing before I wrap up here. Let me just see. Sorry. Your perfect customer. This is the most important thing, right? If you take away nothing else from this talk, I want you to really focus and hone in and constantly refine your perfect customer. But here's the deal. You got to take ego out of it. Your perfect customer might not be who you think they are, right? So you think you create this product for this person, and then this person is the one that really likes it. So it's a thesis at best, and it can constantly change, right? But what I want you to understand, I want you to go into this crafting your perfect customer thesis. So it's not set in stone, right? You have to validate, and you validate with paying customers. When you start having money in the bank account, stuff is starting moving, then you're like, okay, I think we're on it. But in the interim, it's all up in the air. And so give yourself 2 to 3, no more than 3 audiences that you're going to target that meets that perfect customer. So you have your primary perfect customer, boom. Then you have the secondary one, and then you have this tertiary one. And as you're going to market, you're trying to sell, you're getting pushback, right? Then you start to realize, okay, this is actually our perfect customer. And a lot of you right now that have already launched, I'm willing to bet, you say, oh, I don't know who my perfect customer. I'm like, well, who's buying the majority of your product, right? Where is the majority of your revenue coming from? Because this is peer reviewed. They call them super consumers. A super of 1 is a super of 10, right? So everywhere that most profitable customer is, he rolls in a circle, probably 10 more. All right. Now, last thing, and this is my bonus for you all as veteran entrepreneurs. Nobody taught me this when I became an entrepreneur. There's a roadmap that's already pretty much laid out, right? So let's be honest. Most of us on this call probably feel like we're white knuckling it, right? Just making it up as we go. It's like the Wizard of Oz. You look behind the curtain, it's you back there pulling a bunch of strings, okay? But there is a road ahead, all right? And it's called the 5 stages of small business growth. And if you don't have a small business, you have a startup, it still looks relatively the same, okay? Phase number 1, you got to validate your business model. Everything we talked about today is to validate, right? And you have to constantly validate, and you validate with paying customers and give yourself a number. If you're trying to work on your venture full time, how much money do you need to generate in order for you to take a salary or you to feel comfortable to work on your business full time, right? You set that number, okay? Once you validate the business, the next thing you need to do is you need to drive revenue, right? So you're driving revenue. This is where you're trying to get that consistent revenue to the point that you can predict your cash flow, at least 12 weeks out, ideally 3 to 6 months out, right? So you get predictable revenue coming in, right? You have a good understanding of who your perfect customer is, right? And now you actually have capital that you can use as a weapon. You can start investing in maybe some content, or you invest in this over here. Maybe you get a business coach or something, right? That you have enough capital coming in to where now you can actually start to think strategically. It's hard to do that when you're just guessing all the time. You have no idea. Once you have that predictable revenue coming in, the next thing you can do is you can actually start to build out the foundation, right? So now this is when you can start bringing on other team members. You bring on that virtual assistant. Maybe you hire that digital marketing specialist. Now you actually start to have a team, right? Things are moving. Then you say, okay, I want to scale up, right? Maybe you have a brick and mortar location. You want to go from one location to a second location. That's that expansion. But guess what? When you expand, you got to go through this whole model all over again, right? You got to validate. You got to drive sales and stuff, et cetera. And then last is that multiply. This is that mass scale, right? And it can look for you in whatever way it wants. I'm building a small giant. I've been leading people since I was like 18. I'm tired. I just want to have a small team. My agency small, my nonprofit small for now, right? And I'm happy with that, right? But you've got to be clear with you and the people you're bringing into this, including your family, right? About what kind of business you want to build, okay? Now, for whatever business I launch, whenever I'm building any new brand, I always go through this. This is always there. And I'm like, okay, where are we at in this phase of the process? Because a lot of people that are running into cash flow issues right now, sometimes there's stuff you just can't help. Like if you had a retail business during COVID, shuts it down, it is what it is. It's just the cost of doing business. But sometimes people bring on too many team members, right? They scale up too quick without dialing in that revenue, that sales. And so this is interchangeable. Sometimes you might have to go back, right? But this is a super important slide to think about as you are in your phase of building your businesses. All right, I literally talked for like 30 minutes. So I want to take a pause and open the floor for questions. Not everyone at once. Jeff, you got a question?
When you were finding your way before you get your first sale, were you challenged with identifying what services you provided? And how did you get to clarity on the services that actually are sellable?
This is a great question. Okay. The first thing I'll tell you is both times I was able to get customers, whether I had, my boxing business or I had the podcast business, right? And the reason being was, okay, I validated, I won't say I validated pretty quick. I knew what I brought to the table, right? So example, right? You can look around and you can say like, are people paying for boxing? The fact of the matter was they were going to gyms, Rumble and stuff, etc. I had a gym. So I already knew people were asking me, hey, if I did one-on-one and stuff, etc. I just hadn't done it at the company level, but I knew that there were other companies out there that were selling corporate wellness, right? Corporate boxing. And actually I was able to get a mentor. Her name's Liz Wilkes, who is the founder of Exuberancy. I jumped on a call with her and she let me know, hey, this is what typically is offered, right? These are what companies are typically paying for. So not just doing market research online, it was literally getting on the phone, talking with people in the industry to understand, hey, these are the options from a service perspective that have already been validated. The thing was, I just didn't have a lot of those corporate wellness relationships. That was the biggest challenge for me. Okay, now, when I did the podcast, I had already launched my own podcast, Confessions of a Native Son, and I was getting a lot of positive feedback about it. And I came up in my mind, I was like, you know what? I'm willing to bet someone will pay me to do what I'm doing for myself for them. And I did some research. I knew there were podcast agencies out there. And I also knew, just like people build websites, there was an opportunity to build podcasts because there's a lot of back-end infrastructure that had to get done. And I just started talking to customers and I was looking for that market pull. Remember when I opened this talk, I was like, where do you feel like, how do you position your product or service in a market with strong demand? The market's moving out there. Boom, boom, boom. It's moving, right? Our job is not to fight upstream. It's to find out where demand already is. So I live in New York City, right? People freaking in love with their dogs now. Like dogs are literally like children out here, right? They've got strollers. They got all this kind of stuff. In my mind as an entrepreneur, I'm like, yo, my next business will probably be a doggy business. The problem is though, I'm not a dog person. I don't like them. So I'm not the best one to solve that problem. And I could get myself in trouble from speculation, right? But if there's somebody I know in my personal network who's really big with dogs, I'm telling them, hey, you should probably test something in this doggy market because I'm already seeing this pull there. People are buying gourmet dog food, you know, freaking Louis Vuitton dog clothes, all this kind of stuff. And so I'm testing it. So I hope that answered your question.
All right, let's get Teresa next.
Hi, Mike. I don't know if you know Ken Brenneman or not at Goldman Sachs. He also works with Warrior Rising. He's working on a dog kind of brand. So maybe you should connect with him if you know him.
I think,
My
yeah, please connect me.
Yeah. So my question is, we won $10,000 worth of iHeartRadio media ads. We are a 67-acre mixed-use space with strawberry and blueberries, but our real draw is an 18-basket disc golf course, and we have a pro shop for disc golf. And I guess my biggest thing is I'm really kind of scared of the ads. I don't know how to capture to see if later on after our money runs out, if we keep doing them. With you kind of having the radio and podcast, have you found it effective and how do you track that?
100%. So we just launched a podcast with our own university. We did an episode for Survive Business Coaching, right? So what do? I ask Rob and Rihanna, hey, how many leads have we gotten to come in through the podcast? And they let me know, right? So that's one way to do it. The thing that I would think about for you, and I'll use Liquid Death as an example. Everybody's seen Liquid Death, right? They're the canned water, murder your thirst, whatever, right? Very, very interesting brand. I'm like, what the heck is so popular about Liquid Death? I found out about the brand on a podcast. So I started doing some research, right? And I'm expecting the founder to be on all these different entrepreneur podcasts and stuff. No, he was on these like punk rock podcasts that were like in a basement somewhere. Then I said, aha, you see, that's his tribe, right? That's who he was creating a brand around initially, was the punk rock scene. So a lot of his early podcasts, he was going on these punk rock tour, right? So when you think about your business and what your offering is, what kind of podcasts do your perfect customers already listen to where it would be an easy thing for a host read ad to read or whatever, right? So that's what I would do. I would think about where your tribe is and how you can use that podcast to build trust and awareness to drive them to you.
All right, we have one from the chat I want to bring in. It was from Carrie. It says, can you please clarify what you mean by perfect customer thesis?
All right, so you remember in high school, we used to do the scientific method, It's like, so we have these assumptions, right? This is what we believe, right? And we write it out. And then we do a test. And the test actually informs us whether we were right or not. And then we have to come back and update our thesis based off of the data that we're getting from the experiment. Okay. That's what you have to do with regards to your perfect customer, right? You have an assumption that this person is your perfect customer. Okay. So I'll use myself as an example. When I started Ironbound Media, I assumed my perfect customer was incubators and accelerators. Why? Because I launched the business during the pandemic. And I assumed that like being online, teaching entrepreneurship all day, like was like terrible, especially Zoom classes, right? People were dying on Zoom. Universities dying on Zoom, right? So my assumption is, what if we can take this content that they're delivering online and put it on a podcast, right? But guess what? I start to talk to venture capitalists. I start to talk to incubators and accelerators. Found out they didn't have a budget for podcasting, okay? They didn't have a large marketing budget in general. And if you think about how VC firms work, right? They have their management fee. Some of them like A16Z have big budgets. They got like $1 billion fund. So they have like millions of dollars that they can use in their management fee. But a lot of these other venture capital firms, that's not the case, right? So they weren't a good fit. But then all of a sudden I get on a call like this with a bunch of veteran-owned businesses. And my business coach, Bill Watkins, goes, Mike, who's your perfect customer? And at the time, I just said, you know what? I'm a Naval Academy grad. What if my perfect customer is a Naval Academy grad, likes entrepreneurship? So I just winged it. I said, Bill, my perfect customer is a Service Academy grad that's running a small business or startup and wants to launch a podcast, very entrepreneurial, wants to talk about leadership and et cetera, et cetera. Literally on the call, BJ Kramer, a West Point grad and owner of MCFA, a construction management firm, unclicked off of mute and said, Mike, that's me. When can we talk? I booked him for a call the following day. By Friday, he had signed with Ironbound Media and he picked our most profitable package. So that's what and I just made it up. I just threw some packages on a slide, bronze, silver, platinum. I was like, you know what, let me wing it at the end. Let me go for it. Put a big number at the end. He's like, give me that one, right? And so that's what I talk about, like your perfect customer, all right? So the market is going to tell you, what's the saying, right? Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. Bro, like right now, y'all are hitting the heavy bag. You ain't done no sparring, right? So you look good on the heavy bag, right? Talking to your friends and family. Oh yeah, this sounds like a good idea. Oh, that could work. Minute you get in that boxing ring, you get punched in the face, you're gonna have to bob and weave and keep your hands up real quick. And so that's what I'm talking about. Let the market dictate. And you have to let go of your ego. That's the biggest thing that's gonna be the challenge for most of y'all. You're so in love with your business idea and you're so in love with being right that even when the signs are there, right? You're gonna be stubborn. Oh, I can wing it. I can figure it out. I can white knuckle it. Sometimes you're not gonna be able to.
All right, let's get Mark Selesky next.
Hey, Rob, nice to see you again. And Mike, thanks a bunch for doing this. I'd like to, so I'm tracking with all of that you said. We've been positioning for a release of a software product for the last 9 months on it. And have a developed product and pretty much have been following the pattern that you're saying. But my question circles around pricing. I wonder if you have any insights that you can share about establishing your price point and how you introduced that into the market space that you were targeting.
Great question. And this goes back, this is branding too. How you show up to the market, right? Is very, I keep saying it's important. Let's say I show up and I launch not jeweler. Let's say I'm going to sell a balm, some kind of healing balm, right? And I call it luxury CPG, right? So if I say I'm a luxury X, right? Then right off the bat, I probably can't charge like $15 for that balm. You get what I'm saying? I got to be 50, 75, maybe over 100, right? Just by the nature of me showing up on luxury. Why do I say that? Because you look at the competitors in the space, in the market that you're in, right? And say, okay, well, this balm is 100. This balm is 150. This balm is X in the luxury space. For a software product, okay? We think we're so innovative, but like, what are your customers already using to solve the problem that you're going after, right? In absence of you, what are they using? Maybe it's another software, okay? If so, how much is that software now? Like, what are they paying for it currently? Then you think about, okay, what are your other competitors, right? So typically it's like, what is typical spend people are using for this type of software? Once you know that baseline, then you can decide, right? Again, am I competing, okay, with what's out there, right? So yeah, you got this option, you got this option. I don't recommend competing on price, trying to be the cheaper version or something that just never works out. It could be something as we offer more value though, right? So you can say, hey, at this price, but what separates us from our competitors is that we're able to offer 3x or 5x value for the same price point.
How important is it that that you may have found to be so many, one of the business models in the software industry space and in the downloadable software industry space is to price to market. That is what the market will bear. And that then requires that it is common then that software vendors do not establish a price up front, but rather they establish either a range or a position on it that then is tailored into the customer after some of the initial lead is established. I wonder how important you think pricing is in the initial lead generation and discussion that brings the customer into the final negotiation.
It's super important. Again, it's dictating how you're showing up to the market, right? I know I used the bomb as an example a while ago. Let's take another leg. Potato chips, right? You ever get potato chips out the vending machine, right? Maybe $1.25, you know, maybe if you're at an event, it's like $3, but like, I'm not paying $20 for a bag of Lay's, right? Why? Because it's not the market standard. It just doesn't make sense. Okay. When you're showing up to the market from a price perspective, right? Will it make sense to the market? And if it doesn't make sense to the market, what are you doing to articulate that? See, what people don't, the thing is, it's all a guess, right? And it's going to come down to what are people willing to pay for. And so you have a set initial price. This is what we believe people are willing to pay for this product. This is why. You go to market and you test. Then you find out how much people are really willing to pay for. And it can shift too, depending on people's pain, right? So you think about another software like Zoom, right? People were willing to pay X number of dollars for Zoom. Then the pandemic hit. There was a huge demand for it, right? I'd have paid whatever, you know, if it was going to get us online, right? So part of it is, you know, you just got to be observant and you just got to test. You got to test. But I got a great book for you, Mark. It's called Start Small, Stay Small, A Developer's Guide to Launching a Startup by Rob Walling. I actually had him on one of my podcasts, and he gives a great breakdown about pricing in that book. But message me on LinkedIn. We can talk some more offline around this because it's a good question. And I actually cover pricing in a chapter of my book as well.
Thanks, Mark. Let's move on to Daisy, and then we'll get to Sandra.
Hi, Mark. Thanks. I mean, Mike. I'm saying Mark. Thanks for this webinar. So my question is, well, I'm in the wellness space for holistic wellness and resiliency for women of color. And so my question is around that whole perfect customer in the testing phase, because that's sort of where I am now, trying to narrow that avatar down, or that perfect customer down. Is there like a suggested system to sort of follow to do that testing? Because I feel like that's probably where I'm stuck, is really trying to get to that, because it's so broad in a way.
I need to cover this on a podcast, but there's a guy named Newton M. Campos who wrote a book called The Myth of the Idea and the Upside Down Startup. And one of the things he talks about is resource-led entrepreneurship. So let's reverse engineer this, okay? Who's your perfect customer? I would start to say, okay, what networks am I already a part of? Like that I already have trust and credibility in, right? Associations, da-da-da. Then I say, okay, what is my unique offering and skill set that I bring to the table, right? Da-da-da. And then I say, okay, how much time can I dedicate to working with this, you know, on this business, right? Maybe it's the weekends, da-da-da. And then I find a perfect customer based off of all that, right? So let's say, because a lot of times it's going to be people you know, right? Like early on, don't make it hard. Entrepreneurship is hard enough as it is. Some of y'all are like, I'm launching a business in my apartment and I'm going to get freaking McKinsey as a client out the gate. If you got McKinsey as a client, would you even know what to do with them? No, it's gonna be a pain. They're gonna ask you all these legal contract questions and you're gonna be stuck, right? It's like boxing, right? Like you're not gonna compete for a heavyweight title your first fight out the gate. No, you gotta fight some bums, work your way up. Okay. So for you, right, it's gonna be within your immediate circle. It's gonna be some degrees of separation. So that's what you're gonna do. Now, here's the challenge, right? And this is something I didn't talk about before. Your market, there's certain markets that are hard. It's all hard. Entrepreneurship is hard, but certain things are really hard, like notoriously hard. Running a restaurant, notoriously hard. It just is what it is. CPG, notoriously hard. It is what it is. Okay. Health and wellness, kind of hard, like pretty hard, right? Unless you're in a space where people are already spending money on it. Okay. So like if you see this with gyms a lot of times, right? People go, they pay their little $20 gym membership and they never use the gym, but they're happy with their little $20. And then some luxury gym comes and they're like, we're going to offer this. It's $250 a month. They're like, no, hold up. Not happening. Because mentally, like I'm not there, right? I've never spent $250 for a gym membership. It will never happen, yada, yada, yada. What you have to do is you got to find those people that are already spending money, right? Or are open to spending money at that level. Because you're building a business now, you can't be charging $20 an hour for wellness counseling, right? You need to be, you want to create a sustainable business for yourself. And so then you say, okay, who can actually afford to pay me? So that is a part of a formula, right? So it's like, I service a lot of service-based businesses. Why? Because service-based businesses tend to have more cash flow to be able to bring in a brand strategist, to be able to bring in a podcast production, right? If I'm fighting for margin every single day at like a restaurant, I can't pay 15, 25K for a podcast. It's just not going to happen, right? I'm barely paying myself, right? You see what I'm saying? So if a business owner is barely paying themselves, why would they be able to afford to pay you? These are real questions that you need to ask yourself. So really understand the industry that you're going after, really understand, the margins, like how money's moved in that space. And then what does it take for you to craft a strong value proposition that says, hey, I'm worth this investment and I can 10X it.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
All right, Sandra, you're up next.
Hi, thanks. Mike, we met briefly at the Millvent conference in February. It's nice to see you again. So glad to have you here. My question is actually, you spoke earlier about sort of the steps, getting your point of view on perspective, then talk about your competitors, then position yourself, and CEOs all need to be able to sell. I'd love to hear some examples, if one or two examples you can provide, that kind of moment when you're a CEO has to do that. I love the Lay's chips example. I'd like to hear examples so I can also feed off of them.
All right, raise your hand familiar with CrossFit. Are you familiar with CrossFit? All right, raise your hand. All right, cool. What about you, Sandra? You familiar with CrossFit?
Yeah.
All right, so remember when CrossFit rolled out 2005? It was kind of weird. I was at the Naval Academy. People were like, hey, man, you want to do this CrossFit workout in the parking lot? No, I'm going to the gym. I'm not going to a parking lot, play around with some PVC pipes. But what did CrossFit do? CrossFit introduced a new category, functional fitness, right? They didn't only introduce it, they were bullish about it. They were like, all that Globo gym is a waste of time. What you need to do is you need to do CrossFit. What did they do? They had a professional journal, the CrossFit Journal, where they shared their point of view. Okay. So they were publishing this thing on a consistent basis. They were inviting contributors to basically spread the CrossFit gospel, right? They introduced a new language into the category. Their gyms aren't called gyms. What are they called? Boxes. You don't do a workout. What do? You do a WOD. You get what I'm saying? They had their own shoes and gear. They had their own games, right? You see this with a lot of startups, right? They do these conferences and these events, right? That's because they're evangelizing it. See, what they're doing is they're building a category. And it got to a certain point that, like, even if you didn't do CrossFit and you did functional fitness, people would say, well, that sounds like CrossFit. And you saw people that were trying to do it without paying the affiliation fee. It'd be like, we do X fitness or da-da-da, right? So let's break down CrossFit. What they have, they had a point of view, right? Global gyms was a waste of time. You need functional fitness. They had their whole spiel. I forget Greg Glassman and stuff, etc. Okay. They had raving fans, right? Gospel, loved it, right? He went on podcasts. He shot videos. They did a bunch of stuff to build, articulate it. See, right now, everybody wants to do this thought leadership. It's BS. Take thought leadership right here and throw it away. It's trash. But you want to be known for something, right? Thought leader is, don't say I want to be a thought leader. Write 100 articles or a blog post or something about a topic that you know about, sharing your perspective, how you think about it, etc. At the end of that 100 whatever, then you're a thought leader. Okay, so you want to evangelize it. And it all starts, Sandra, with framing the problem. What is the problem? What are you curious about? What are you learning on your journey to solve this problem, right? And then you say, okay, well, this is how we think about it. And you start to share what you're learning along the way. So I think CrossFit, what CrossFit's doing is a great example. And you think about myself, right? Dog whistle branding. When I launched my business, I didn't say dog whistle branding. I said my first thing was podcast like a platinum album. That was the way I thought about podcasts. You know, an album is good 10, 20, 30 years later. Why not a podcast? So we can do a 5 episode, we can do a 10 episode, etc. But once I found out veterans were my perfect customer, I pivoted into what I call dog whistle branding. But early on, it was we make badass podcasts. But I knew that in the podcasting space, that wasn't going to be enough. I didn't just need to be, you can't say podcast and it's Mike Stedman synonymous with podcast. But dog whistle branding, synonymous. Black veteran entrepreneur, synonymous, right? Why? Because I wrote a book about it. I evangelize it. I speak about it, right? That's how you create a category. It's a non-obvious insight, right? This example here is like, there's tons of Black veteran entrepreneurs. Nobody ever wrote a book on it, you know? So then I start writing a book. And so if you Google Black veteran entrepreneur, I'm literally going to pop up, right? So whatever idea you want to be known for your company, that's what I'm talking about. And what is the best medium? What is the best whistle to communicate to your perfect customer?
Thank you.
I think we've got time for one last question if anybody has one. All right. Well, if not, I guess we'll, here's one in the chat. Any advice on finding perfect partners as you grow?
Yes. Great question, Eduardo. When you're building your brand, you need to come up with your values. Like, what are the behaviors that you operate on? So when you think about like us in the military, honor, courage, and commitment. Okay. If I'm going to partner with someone, I kind of want them to have honor, courage, and commitment, right? If I'm going to war with someone, they need to have honor, courage, and commitment. Why? Because their values align with ours in the military. If their values don't align with ours, they're probably not going to be a good partner. If let's say one of your core values is white glove customer service, and then you find a partner who's like, we don't care. We don't care about customers whatsoever. Probably setting yourself up for failure. So I would say the same thing I told, I forgot her name, who was in the chat. What networks are you already a part of? Whose values align with yours? And then how can you craft a strong value proposition together that actually makes sense for you to work together? All right. That would be my recommendation.
All right. So big thanks to Mike. Awesome as always to hear you speak. And I just for everyone's reference, I dropped a link in the chat. Iona University, as part of the Community Navigator pilot program, is providing free one-on-one business counseling. So if you're interested, there's a registration link in the chat. You fill that out, we'll get you set up with a business advisor, and we'll help you with any issues from, startup planning, business financing, marketing, to, getting certified in government contracting. So we're a support system across the board. And we'll be sending out a recording of this to anyone that participated for reference. And we're here to help. So definitely get in touch. The Community Navigator pilot program has a lot of resources. So definitely take advantage. And just, Mike, thank you again so much for your time. And thanks everyone for participating.
Rob, can I give a quick plug real quick before we bounce?
Of course, please, the floor is yours.
I really appreciate everyone tuning in today. It is my honor to be here. And I have one ask. I wrote my first book, like I said, Black Veteran Entrepreneur. It's available on Amazon. If you would kindly get the book and leave a review on Amazon, let me know what you think. I would truly appreciate it. This is not a moneymaker for me. It's just a way to really grow the veteran entrepreneurial ecosystem. And doing everything I talked about today, I built a market for the book. So I did market first, then book. There's a lot of business books out there, not a lot of books targeting Black veteran entrepreneurs, right? So that was by design. And so if you support my book, I truly appreciate it.
his book is amazing. Definitely get it. It's absolutely amazing. It's going to be required reading for all my entrepreneurship students going forward. So get the book. It's excellent.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. And make sure you add me on LinkedIn too, especially St. Joseph. I want to talk to y'all.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for
Thanks,
participating.
everyone.